What up, Masters? Welcome to another episode of Path to Mastery. My friends, today we have Mr. Dirk Van Reenen on the show. He started a company called BERGflow, and I said, that's an interesting name. I'm like, what does that mean? And you know what it means? It means to be in the state of flow. And it's awesome. I'll tell you, I took a lot from this episode. I actually listened to it again for the third time yesterday, and it's fantastic. And you know what he talks about? How we're all entrepreneurs, right? But how to be an empowered entrepreneur, how to focus on the right things. You know, I think a lot of us make the mistake of focusing on the what's in the hows, and we forget about the why we're actually doing it. And then when that shows, and I know some of you have heard variations of this probably many times, he just does a really fantastic job of sharing this. And the other thing that he talks about is, you know, being just present and being in the flow and being in the right state. And then when you're there, then it's going to make all these other things so much easier. So it's a great episode. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy it as well. I also want you to check out my friend Justin Boucher. He just came out with a brand new podcast. It's the AGA Triathlon Podcast. Again, the AGA Triathlon Podcast. Check it out on wherever you listen to your podcasts. It's everywhere. It's amazing. So check that out. And also our friends Vulcan 7. Don't forget about Vulcan 7 for your for sale by owner expired, all your database, prospecting database, I should say, needs. Go to vulcan7.com/path to mastery, my friends. And don't forget, I'm so excited about our new expired, I redid the whole expired training program, and it's brand new for you. We're going to have a really low price tag because we want everybody to get into it. And then it's going to include also live lead generation sessions with me and other rock stars. So I want you to go to expired.schoolforrealtors.com. Again, expired.schoolforrealtors.com. My friends, enjoy Dirk. Hey, what's up, Masters? Welcome to another episode of Path to Mastery. Today we're with Dirk from BERGflow. What's going on, man?
David, how's it going, man? Doing well today and excited to be on the show with you.
Yeah, well, it's good to have you. I'm glad we were able to get this together today. And your company's called BERGflow. So I'll give you a bio, and then I want to understand what BERGflow means, all right? So how'd you come up with that name? That's an interesting name. So you're an award-winning entrepreneur, sought-after international business consultant and speaker. You've launched and sold several startup companies. Also was one of the top brokerage CEOs for Keller Williams. You led one of the fastest-growing brokerages in KW worldwide. You discovered a deeper purpose and reevaluated everything you were doing and the path you were on. Made some huge changes, including resigning from his corporate CEO position, shutting down one of his businesses, and relocating across the United States to launch BERGflow in 2017. Today, Dirk has been blessed to work with companies in 13 states, 4 countries, and on 3 continents, following his purpose, empowering entrepreneurs, which is really what excited me about this conversation with you, and in CEOs and also leaders to build powerful and productive teams and helping them grow and scale their businesses while giving them a better quality of life with more fulfillment. Amen. All right. So that, and then what's BERGflow, man?
Yeah, I love answering this question, and I get this question a lot. So it's really cool when, you just kind of read the bio, and there was a lot of stuff that I changed in a very short amount of time at the end of 2016. So during that time, I was really looking at designing the next phase of my life and really getting very purposeful. I mean, that was the one thing that really stuck with me. So I wanted to be purposeful about everything that we did, including actually naming my next company. Because that actually, in the past, I've built companies before that were successful companies that I ended up not even liking the company, not even liking the name, the brand, the logo, any of it, right? It was just about growth. So this time it had to be purposeful. So here's what I knew. is I knew I was kind of at a stage in my life that I was fortunate that I'd been trained at a really high level, for quite a few years, building large businesses. I'd started up some companies, so I was in a place in my life that I felt like I had a good enough, like a good amount of experience to really start taking on some larger challenges. And so I knew that was, when I started the company, BERGflow, I was 36 years old, and I kind of looked at it, hey, what's going to be that thing that I can really push hard for the next maybe 15, 20 years of my life, and take on a big challenge. So that was one thing. And so what I started looking for is, okay, what represents, that challenge? And I started kind of looking around and said, okay, if we are able to overcome large challenges, right, we're going to be able to unlock really big opportunities. And when you can capitalize on opportunities, you get rewards. So for me, I started looking at, okay, what represents that in the physical world? So for me, it was a mountain, right? And that's where Berg comes from. So it's actually Berg, which is the Afrikaans word for mountain. And I'm originally from South Africa. I was born and raised there. So same thing if you think of like iceberg, ice mountain. So that's where the Berg came from. And then probably about 5 years ago, I watched a documentary on TV. I just happened to watch it, and it's called Happy. And I highly recommend if anybody's looking for a great documentary, it's called Happy. Yeah, just Happy. And in the documentary, they explore really 5 key fundamentals that are really necessary for human beings to truly experience joy and happiness. And there were a lot of these kind of, the other things in the show that kind of, just kind of everyday kind of things that weren't that, significant in terms of like you wouldn't think like that's necessary, but there's one that really stuck out to me, and it was flow, the state of flow. And they said if a human being is not able to get into the state of flow on a regular basis, they can't actually experience true joy and happiness. So I don't know why that just stuck with me, and I started paying attention to that. And I think since then, I mean, there's been a lot of research done on the state of flow, and I think more people are familiar with it today than they were maybe 5 years ago. But the thing that stuck out is that flow comes from a place of passion and purpose. It comes from when you are so immersed in something that time ceases to exist. Every worry that you have ceases to exist, that in that moment, you are completely consumed with what you're doing. Nothing else matters. And so I thought, man, like, what if you could actually experience that on a regular basis at work? And I was like, that's what I want BERGflow to be about. I want a company that we can go after really big challenges and do it in a way that we love what we do so much so we can actually experience flow at work. So that's where BERGflow comes from.
Cool, man. That's deep, man. I like it. So as far as I know, when you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and recently I read a quote, I'd love to get your opinion on this, is an entrepreneur will work 80 hours for himself so he doesn't have to work 40 hours for someone else.
I've heard that before. I think it's true.
I can relate. So tell me about that. Why you say it's true? Why is it true?
Again, man, because we work with a lot of companies. We're blessed that, on an ongoing basis, we work with about 165 companies now. And for us, it's really interesting that when you really start finding out, okay, why do people go into entrepreneurship? And there is a sense of like, well, they don't want to work for somebody else, but there's a deeper sense that they want to build something. Like they want to have like their thumbprint on something. They said like, I did this, I solved a problem, like I built something. And because of that, it's definitely not for the money, right? Because we know that, I mean, starting off in businesses, a lot of times the first couple of years are rough, man. I mean, you're working a lot of hours for very little money, right? Especially if you're bootstrapping it, not like venture capital type stuff, but you got to do it for the love of what you're doing, because you're essentially betting on yourself, right? You're saying like, hey, instead of going to work for somebody else for 40 hours and a guaranteed paycheck, and I say guaranteed in quotations because we know that there's not really that much guarantee in it. But instead of doing that, you're willing to bet on yourself. And I think like because of that, you're so bought in and you take so much ownership in what you do that you're willing to put the extra hours in to make it work.
So when it comes to the people you're working with, you're working with big businesses, or not big, like smaller businesses, but you're equating it to being bringing them to the highest level in flow at that level. So when I think of flow, I think of it as like just being present. And it's similar, right? You're present in what you're doing. You're not thinking about anything else. It's hard to describe. I think you did a pretty good job describing it, right? So how do you work with people to get them to that place? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, David, I think one of the first things that has to be present to really kind of walk that out is, number one, you've got to be, and I love that you said present, right? Because I mean, that's such an important thing, but people have to be present in what's authentic to them. And this is one thing that we stress all the time with our clients is like, look, you've got the ability to create something really amazing. And that's one thing that I love about entrepreneurship and business is that for me, it's a form of art. And I mean, think about this: creating a business. A business is a living organism. It becomes a living organism, and to do that, you as an entrepreneur, it's like, for me, it's like one of the ultimate forms of art, that you get to express who you are, your purpose, your passion, your authenticity, and you create an environment that starts inviting other people into it. And when it's done right, I think it's one of the most dynamic and one of the most beautiful things in out there is building a business, building a team. And I know that that's maybe for some people listening, like some people are going to get that statement and other people are going to be like, okay, that guy's crazy. But for me, like, that's why we do this work, is that you get to create an environment and invite people into it and go out and serve the world. And your ability to serve and generate value determines, the exchange in dollars that come to you, but also the exchange in fulfillment and happiness and joy. And, I think for a lot of people know this, right? At some point, money just cannot cover the things that you don't love about what you do. And at a certain point, if you don't love what you do and the people that you do it with and who you do it for, if that's not there in a big way, then what are you ultimately doing? So that's one of the first things that we have to do when we work with companies, is we have to make sure that they are very clear about who they are and what they're doing and who they're doing it for and why they're doing it. And for us too, we're actually very picky about who we work with, because we found that if we don't work with the right kind of companies that really gel with who we are as a company and as a brand and as a culture, then it's just not going to be a great fit, and we're not going to get great results, right? So for us, that's part of that is like, part of our authenticity is also finding the right kind of clients and helping them, really realize that. Because when somebody can take a pause and say, okay, look, some things are off in my life, I need to make some changes, right? And that's one thing that, again, end of 2016, man, I made some big changes in my life, some big changes. But what's happened since I made those really big changes in my life, and I put it all on the line, man. I put it all on the line to start BERGflow. But I knew that this time it was going to be something special, because it was truly going to be me walking out the path that I believed was the right path for me.
So how do you do that though, man? So I think the conversation we're having now, there's a lot of people that would like to do that or should do that or are not. I deal with a lot of people that say I'm content where I'm at. So how do you make that move, that jump, and just?
I think, David, it's one of these things that we don't work with people that are content. Right. I mean, if everything is good in your life, you don't need us. Like we're not going to be able to do anything for you. If anything, we're probably just going to piss you off. Right. So we work with people that know that there is a massive gap between where they are today and what they want. Like, those are the people that we work with. And we truly work. I mean, we work with people that are driven entrepreneurs that want to go to the next level and that want to build incredible teams around them. Like, we're very clear about that. If those things aren't initially present, like it's pointless for us to actually have a conversation with somebody. But I think what happens is when somebody realizes that something's off in their life, they're going to be searching for something. They know that something's a little bit out of place, and sometimes it's a small tweak, and sometimes it's a major change, right? But what we then have to do is we have to really kind of start having some very honest dialogue with people, and that's one thing also. That when we started BERGflow, right, I said I want this to be different from any other organization I've been a part of, and the way that I've done business in the past, and essentially like in BERGflow, we just say, look, when we start doing work, like we step into a no bullshit zone. And that means that you are going to be very honest and authentic about where you are in your life. You're going to take full responsibility for it. And you're going to start understanding, like, what is it that I've been lying to myself about, right? What is it that we call it like incongruency, that something is incongruent in your life. It's not authentic. It's not in alignment. And you have to start understanding what that is. And maybe it's for somebody to say, look, I don't really know how to hire top talent or train top talent, or what, I suck as a leader, and whatever it may be. But it's like the recognition of like what's actually, like when you said earlier, like being present. Like if you're actually present, you can say in your life what's working right now and what's not working. Because I think a lot of people, one, they're not aware of like really what's working in their life. Like most people succeed like in spite of themselves, right? So you got to figure out what's working. Like, how am I actually moving things forward in a big way right now, right? Or that things are good in my life. And then the opposite is like, we got to start finding out, okay, what's not working? And then start figuring out, okay, how do we start engineering the environment, right? How do we start designing this environment now where we can start bringing the right people in that have the right strengths and focuses and behavioral strengths and, the way they think and show up, to start essentially designing the right kind of team that can move things forward. And for us, we actually tell a lot of clients that, look, if you are not doing at least $1 million a year in revenue right now, you probably haven't actually even really figured out how to do this.
Masters, I'm going to get you right back to the show. A couple opportunities for you. First, if you're like me or like any salesperson I've ever worked with, you deal with some form of call reluctance. There's really only 5 major types of call reluctance. They're all in my book, The Sales Playbook. What I want to do for you is I want to share with you a special gift opportunity. I'm going to give you the 5 types of call reluctance, and I'm going to give you the solution to get through each of them. I guarantee I've been doing it 35 years on the phones, and I still deal with call reluctance, but the awareness I have is what helps me keep moving forward. So I want you to go to davidihill.com/5 types, the number 5, davidihill.com/5 types, and get yourself a free download. It's going to give you chapter 3. You are on the phones like me and you're calling expired sellers or for sale by owner sellers or sellers in general, then you want our expired training kit. And right now, this is a special opportunity. Right now, this is happening. If you're interested, you get this expired training kit by going to expired.schoolforrealtors.com. Again, expired.schoolforrealtors.com. Sign up for the kit and you're going to get access to a 1-week live lead generation sessions with me. That's right. I'm logging on in the mornings and making calls. You're going to log in with me on Zoom on a small group. And listen, we're going to get feedback to each other. We're going to help each other. We're going to coach each other, support each other. I'm going to work directly with you. That's a special opportunity going on right now for people who go and sign up for expired.schoolforrealtors right now. Get signed up for that. Hey, I look forward to lead generating with you and helping you take your business to the next level. Hey, enjoy the rest of the episode.
Service that you're doing. And, I meet people, regularly that, they're doing $100,000 a year in revenue, and they think they know it all. They think they figured everything out. And I say, like, no, like you're not ready to scale this yet because you haven't really figured out how to do what you do really well. And that's like the first point that I had to realize, is that you got to set the bar way higher if you really want to build a solid business. Because I started seeing so many people that at really low revenues, they started doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Sure. And, and then the next thing, they hit a bump and they don't have any money. You see it all the time in real estate, man.
Yeah, big time.
It's like, one new mega team pops up and they're like the hot thing. And then next year, like there's nothing there, right? It's just like vanished into thin air. So, and you see this a lot outside of real estate as well. So it's one of those things to really challenge people to say, look, get settled in figuring out how you're going to do the thing that you're going to do really well. And instead of like just getting out there and immediately hiring other people to do the service with you, get up to capacity at a really high level. And then I mean, this is something we did in BERGflow this year. January was the start of our 4th year, and that was the first time that I brought anybody else in to be what we call a BERGflow guide, which is our version of like a coach, trainer, consultant. And for the previous 3 years, I was the only one delivering services within BERGflow, but we had built a team of 7 people, and their job was just to absolutely support me in doing as much work at a really high level as I possibly could, because then I figured out how to do the thing that we do really well. Now I can invite other people into it. But a lot of times out there in the business world, we see people that they haven't even remotely figured out how to do something at a high level yet and really push capacity. And they start hiring other producers. And what they're doing is they're training those other producers from the start how to never be really high level producers. Like from the start, they're setting them up to be mediocre or average because they didn't like get to that point where they were killing it and really doing a great job. So I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody recently who's, he closes like 10 transactions a year. Good guy, but he's like, "Oh, I'm starting a team." I'm like, "You're starting a team? Like, how do you start a team? you should be on a
that's
team,
it, right?
Mind,
yeah.
But anyway, it's, and I think that's the common, And then the other thing is coaching. I'm gonna start coaching people. I closed, 20 homes last year, and I'm gonna coach. It's another common thing in the real estate industry. I don't want to bash poor real estate agents, though. It's especially since it's the majority of our listeners. Obviously, it's not the people listening here. Yeah. But let me ask you this question. So, like, what are the big questions someone listening should be asking themselves when it comes to the type of company, product, team, environment they're looking to build?
I think the first thing you got to ask yourself is like, if you're going to build something, and this is our tagline, right, is build something worthwhile. So we always start with the question of like, look, if you're going to build something worthwhile, because your time as a human being is too valuable to waste. So if you're going to use your time and effort and energy to build something worthwhile. So then the question becomes, okay, what does that mean to you? Right? So I would say, David, if you truly think about building something worthwhile, what does that mean to you? How would you describe it? What needs to be present for this to be truly worthwhile? And that's where we start the conversation, because that's where somebody gets to articulate in their own voice what's going to be important to them. And that's where they get to start the designing process of building, right? Because I mean, if somebody says, "Oh, I want to make $100,000 a year," like it's like we're so far from where we need to be when somebody starts off with that kind of statement, right? From that kind of statement, we usually have to work back like 40, 50, 60 questions to start getting back to the root of like, what do they really want? So I think like that's the first thing you got to ask yourself, and you can kind of use our thing is like, if I'm going to build something worthwhile, what does that mean to me? What does that look like? What needs to be present if I'm building that? And really start to get clear about not just about the money size of it or the size of the business or whatever that is, but get clear of what do you want that environment to look like? If you went to work every day, what would you really want to see present in that environment? If you brought other people into that environment, what would they want to see present there? What's going to be the experience for the people that you do business with? Like if they do any kind of transaction with you, right? How are you going to impact their life? Like what's going to make you different from everybody else that's doing this, right? But usually like, people kind of have like their like competitive type, advantage type stuff. And like sometimes I think that it's a bunch of bullshit again, right? I think if you create the right environment for the right reasons and you want to craft the right experience, that is going to become your differentiating factor. That's going to be the X factor. So we spend a lot of time on that foundational thing, which most companies don't think about, right? And sometimes we work with companies that now they're doing $4, $5, $6, $7 million a year in revenue, and they start hitting a ceiling. And things just aren't going to move forward. And sometimes we have to kind of tear things down to a foundational level and say, let's start over and talk about why you built this company, right? Yeah. And really just start from that point. So I think like that's the starting point is like, what does that mean to you if you're going to actually build something? Like what needs to be there to be worthwhile?
Well, let me ask you this question, and we're gonna get wrapping up. You one of the questions you sent me is you wrote more of a comment. I asked you what do you want to take from the interview, and you said keep the conversation high level, not digging too deep into how, but rather what, why. What do you mean by that? Tell us about that when you say not so much on the how, because I know a lot of people want to focus on the how. I need strategy. You need to tell me
Yeah.
how to do this and what to do. So
Well, I mean, here's the thing: is like I think strategy in a big part is pointless if you don't know what you're doing it or why you're doing it, or like exactly what you're doing or why you're doing it, right? So, and one thing that we tell all of our clients is don't put the how in front of the what. Because here's kind of what happens, right? Somebody says, "Oh, I want to build this kind of business," and they kind of dream big, and the first thing that enters their mind is what?
yeah,
How am I going to
how
do
am I?
it?
Yeah, how am I going to do that?
And then when they start thinking, like the person I am today doesn't know how to do what I need to do in a year from now. So it's pointless for me to start thinking about exactly how am I going to do something a year from now that I'm wanting to do. But if I can get really clear today on what I want to see happen, and then why that's important, like why does that need to happen? If I can really get crystal clear on those two things, what we tell people is the how will show up. The how will show up. Like you'll find the right person, you'll find the right resource when because again, like David, you probably know about the RAS, right? I mean, you're you know uh,
Sure.
reticular activating system will find things that will recognize your mind is powerful enough, and it's not just kind of like like the secret of just it just shows up. Like your mind is powerful enough and smart enough to go find it for you. And there's so much happening in your environment every single second of every single day that you have no clue that's taking place. Your level of focus is very, very finite on what's happening in your environment. So there's so much more happening. If you get really clear on what you want to see built and why that's important to you, your RAS will find out what else is in your environment right now to help you get the how. And that's why we put that down.
Well, hey, I think it's great stuff, man. I appreciate your time here today. Super helpful. Good conversation on mindset ultimately, and I love what you just right. You said it's not about the how, but it's about the what. The what am I up to, and the why is that important, and then ultimately the how is going to show up. And I agree. We too many. The how can be overwhelming if you're not clear enough on the what. And the why, I guess it might even be more important. Is that accurate? Is the why more important than what, or does it matter?
Yeah, I think they go hand in hand constantly, right? So like Simon Sinek, he kind of says like start with why, like what's your purpose? But when you start with that, you got to kind of attach something to it, right? Because I mean, anybody can say, hey, I want to transform people's lives, like that's my why. Okay, but now you have to like create a what, like what needs to be present, what needs to be there for you to be able to do that. And once you have those two things, then the how, because if you're constantly digging for how, that's all you're ever going to dig for. Is like you almost never have enough how. But when you really know like what you're after and why it's important, then day in and day out, it can
What's
help
a
show up.
what then? In that example you gave, if so, I want to transform lives. That's my why. So, what would an example of a what be there?
Yeah. So the first thing you're going to have to determine is, in what way do you want to do that, right? I mean, because I can transform lives being a dentist, being a roofing contractor, being a real estate agent, being a travel guide, whatever I kind of want to do, you got to start deciding, okay, like what does that need to be present, right? What does the environment want to need to look like when I go to work every day? What do I want to be doing? Because once you kind of get that figured out and you got the what and the why, kind of figured out, then you can say, okay, now how do I need to start doing this? Like what's the foundational building
Steps,
blocks
yeah.
of starting to do what I'm doing? And that's kind of where the strategy and the tactical side really start coming into the equation.
Good stuff, man. Well, how do our listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, just go to BERGflow.com, 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 and that's the best way.
All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you, man. I told you when I came on this, I was at least present enough to know that I was just been dealing with a lot of crap. So I feel better after talking to you for 30 minutes. So I appreciate that. What do you want? What do you want our listeners to take from this today? Like, what would be the thing you really want them to walk away with?
Oh man, if there's just one thing, I would just say, look, get authentic about who you are and what's important to you. Because if you're in business, if you can get straight on that, there's a lot of other things that'll start falling into place. But if there's something off on that side, if you have incongruency at the baseline, everything else that gets built from there has incongruency on it. So when you can get into true alignment at the foundational level, then something special happens.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. All right, man. Well, hey, I just want to thank you for your time. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, David, thank you so much, man. Pleasure. Thank you.
All right, cool, man. Hey, Masters, 45 seconds. That's all I ask. I appreciate you listening to the show. I don't know if I say that enough, but I know you can invest your time wherever you choose. So thank you for spending it here with us. Remember, if you want any information on me or my events coming up, just go to my website, which is davidihill.com. Again, davidihill.com. Click on the events tab. You've got webinars, you've got past webinar replays, everything is there. You can also get access to our sponsors there if you click on the affiliates link. So again, everything is at davidihill.com, and we'd love to have you join us on our Facebook community, but just go to Facebook and search groups, which is Path to Mastery. And finally, as you know, you can get yourself a free book by going to davidsfreebook.com. My friends, again, I just want to say I appreciate you spending time with us. Oh my gosh, I forgot the review. If you would, it helps so much if you'd be willing to go give me a review, and then email a review to me at david@davidihill.com. Email it to me. I'll read it on air for you. And I just want to say I appreciate you again for listening to the show. You rock. Enjoy the rest of your day.